Hey friends, so these are the Cranborne Audio Camden preamps, and they might be some of the best preamps ever made. I'll show you why in this video. So Jim Lill put out an incredible video recently where he did all kinds of interesting and thorough tests showing that his expensive vintage preamp functionally did basically nothing to his recorded audio, and it's got the internet in an uproar. If you haven't got a chance to watch this video and then all the reaction videos, it's wild. It's like a study in everything that makes the audio community fun, endearing, obsessed, hilarious, frustrating, and cringy. It's all been a lot. And some of the potential fallout from this nuclear explosion of an internet argument is that we might be losing the plot. And some folks with less experience could potentially draw some whack conclusions. So what I wanted to do here, instead of proving this or that with tests and graphs, although tests and graphs are really important, I wanted to instead reiterate the role of preamps in audio, what actually matters, why your audio interface preamps are likely all you'll ever need, and what makes the Camden preamp special. So let's get it. So to begin, what's a preamp's function? Well, it's an amplifier. It's there to bring the signal level up from a variety of mics and instruments which make quiet signals up to what's called line level, or the signal that other gear expects like EQs and compressors, and of course most of all, the analog to digital converters in your audio interface. The idea is to get the signal to be much louder than the noise floor. This technology, as well as converter technology, in my opinion, has been all but perfected. If you look at the specs of even super cheap audio interfaces, you'll still find that the preamps, cheap as they are, provide a lot of clean gain, and the converters are clean, and in many cases they're the exact same chip across all kinds of different manufacturers. Now, a lesser but worthy mention is that some people want to use their preamps to color or saturate their signals in a pleasing way. In my opinion, this is where good and bad preamps can exist. Now, I'm pretty firmly in the Jim Lill camp. I think that unless you're purposefully driving your preamp with lots of gain, or even more crucially, unless you're using a preamp that can actually make harmonic distortion in the first place, you're not going to experience a meaningful benefit to spending lots of money on a preamp. I'll prove it. So what you're looking at here are two recordings. One of them is through my RME Fireface UFX3, which is a state-of-the-art, maybe the best audio interface ever made. It's incredible. It's got great specs. It's got extremely clean preamps. That's one of its selling points, I guess. And then I also have this guy. This is a super budget, super cheap audio interface by Zoom called the AMS44. And both the preamps on the RME UFX3 and the preamps on this Zoom AMS44, in my opinion, are good enough to make world-class recordings. And I'm going to prove it here. Now, of course, there's all kinds of connectivity that the UFX offers. It has an onboard mixer. It's got all these incredible features that put it in a class way above the Zoom. But we're focusing on the preamps because the story that you're supposed to believe is that the preamps on this are junk and the preamps on the RME are going to make your audio incredible. Okay, this is not the case. And I'll prove it. What you are looking at here are two really bad recordings. Really bad technique, okay? I recorded an acoustic guitar, and I didn't add any gain with the preamps, okay? I turned the preamps down to as low as I could get them and still get signal to go through the system, okay? What you're about to hear is what I had to do in order to get these signals loud enough to listen to. So on the RME, you can see I've got 24 dB of gain here, and it's just enough to get this signal to be seen. See, if I put it back to where it was recorded at, you can't even see the signal. So I had to boost it up 24. Same with the Zoom, I've boosted it up 24 dB. And then in the track itself, I've added as much gain as I possibly can, 35 dB here and 35 dB here. So we are boosting the gain a total of 59 dB in order to get them up to a level to listen to. So let's go ahead and now listen to these signals, starting with the RME. So because I didn't record the signal very well, because I didn't add any gain, we can hear that noise floor, that hiss, along with the signal, right? Now let's go ahead and play the Zoom. Now we can hear in the Zoom, obviously there's a lot higher of a noise floor. The signal to noise ratio on the Zoom is not as good as the signal to noise ratio on the RME, right? I'll go ahead and just kind of solo this beginning. There's a little bit of me like shifting around, you can hear that, but you'll be able to just listen to the difference in the noise floor. So starting with the Zoom, I'll go back and forth. So obviously, again, the RME has less noise floor. Now, I think both of these recordings are total trash. They're not usable, right? I should have turned the gain up so that I had a lot more signal versus my noise floor. Because if I were to put a compressor and all kinds of other, EQ and all kinds of other things on the signal, the noise floor might even exceed the signal at that point, right? It would be terrible. So now let's look at another set of recordings, and this is where it really starts to matter. Again, this is not a scientific test. I just tried to play the same guitar riff, the same distance from the same microphone, with hopefully as close as I could to get to the same gain settings. And as you can see, this is louder than this, but this is quieter than this. I did my best, okay? This is not a scientific test. But again, what I'm trying to point out is what actually matters here. This is the RME's recording, and this is the Zoom's recording. Let's listen to the RME. Now let's listen to the Zoom. Likely, if I could be an utter robot and be exactly in the same exact position with the same exact playing style and all that other stuff, likely these would null. I don't really know if there is a meaningful difference here. And that's the point. It doesn't matter. If you can optimize the gain on your preamp, you will be able to get above the noise floor and you will have a nice signal regardless of what audio interface that you use. People are getting caught up in this. This is not where it matters, okay? Both of these preamps are doing a good job of bringing the signal up way above the noise floor, so I could process both the Zoom and the RME. I could put this on a platinum record. This would sound as good as it would need to be for a world-class recording. It doesn't matter, okay? But there are situations where you might want to use a preamp to actually distort a signal in a pleasing way, to saturate the signal in a pleasing way. That's actually not what either of these interfaces and the preamps on them were actually designed to do. That's what the Camden, what a Cappy, what a 1073, what other types of preamps were designed to do, to also saturate. So now that we've hopefully clarified what we normally want to ask a preamp to do, get the signal up away from the noise floor, let's look at the Cranborne Audio Camden to look at a preamp that can do more than just that. Okay, so here are the Camdens. I've got two of them in this Cranborne 508 which is a handy 500 series rack that can pass audio back and forth between the DAW and my analog gear. Now, I feel like it's important to say that I'm not sponsored by Cranborne. I'm just a fanboy, and I bought this gear with my own money. So we've already discussed that a good preamp will provide lots of clean gain to get the signal up and away from whatever noise floor your recording system makes. Now, I've already got that with my UFX, and I've honestly got that with pretty much all of my modern gear that has preamps in it. Like I said, this technology has been all but perfected. In terms of clean gain, there's nothing meaningful that this Camden offers me that the cheap Zoom doesn't, so long as I'm responsible and I set my gain correctly when I go to record. So what's the big deal with these preamps? Well, in addition to all the normal features you'd expect from a preamp, like gain, of course, and phantom power, and high-pass filters, and, phase invert switches and things like that, the Camden also has this section called Mojo. These are two distinctly different analog circuits that allow you to add some harmonic distortion, or what some people call color, to the signal. The thump mode, on this side, adds harmonics to the low end, making signals seem fatter, and it adds like a heft and a weight to the sound. And then the cream mode adds more top end and like a mid scoop, similar to the breakup you might hear when you're recording to analog tape. But the best feature of all is this. Listen closely. Both of these modes can be completely bypassed. And that's great because most of the time, and this is a personal preference, I don't want to add distortion to my signals on the way in. I'd rather have more control than that. Other preamps that have the ability to create harmonic distortion are always on. Now, this isn't a problem per se. You can easily dial the output trim and the input gain on those preamps and avoid any distortion, but I just like the control that the Camden has, and I really like the sound of the Mojo modes, which we're going to listen to shortly. And that brings me to the other awesome feature. The Camden has this really awesome switch here to be able to handle a big variety of signals. In particular, it can handle the middle mode, which is line level. So you can send audio out of your DAW back into the preamp at line level, and the preamp will treat the signal as if it was coming in from a mic or an instrument at a level that it expects. This is not only great because it sets the right gain staging for the Mojo modes up here, but it also sets the right gain stage for the rest of my analog gear, especially my other 500 series gear like these awesome API EQs. So essentially the Camdens and the 500 ADAT allow me to treat my analog gear like plugins, where I don't have to get up and swap cables. I can route everything into my DAW and saturate, EQ, and compress my signals easily. So now what we're going to do is I'm going to show you a couple audio examples of how I might use these preamps in a non-standard way. Like instead of recording mics, that's just boring. I'm not going to put you through like, turning the gain up of a mic and recording the mic. Instead, I want to show you how I like to take advantage of these preamps, where I'm using it in a way to kind of juice signals and mixes up using that really beautiful analog distortion. Okay, so let's check that out. All right, so in this example, I'm going to add a little bit of analog drive via these preamps to a drum loop. Let's take a listen to the loop. Right? Drum loops are at negative 21 LUFS, okay? I left a loudness meter up here so you could even make sure that I'm not, trying to like trick your ears by using like, making it louder through the preamps, okay? And the way I'm routing this is using what's called external audio effect. It allows you to route audio out of Ableton into some hardware and then back out of that hardware into Ableton, and it calculates the latency so that it can fit right inside of your mix, and there's no, there's no round trip latency to calculate or anything. It does all that for you. And it also allows you to change the input gain to the hardware and the output from the hardware so you can volume match. So again, I'll play this bypassed and then I'll add the Camdens in there. Yeah, it sounds awesome, doesn't it? That's on the cream mode. It has like this like really, really pleasing top end distortion, adds like breath and life to the music, and then it also kind of has that like pleasing mid scoop. Yeah, I really like that mode. And then here's the other mode. This is thump. Let's take a listen to this. So without it. Now, obviously, that one's making a little bit more gain, so I'm going to click back my gain a little bit and try to volume match these. So somewhere in the middle, maybe I'll make this -1 or something. Yeah, so the thump mode adds those really pleasing low-end harmonics there. Really adds like weight and like, might to the drums, if you will. Yeah, as you can hear, these are two really uniquely different flavors of harmonic distortion you can add to your signals. So I thought this was as good of a time as any to say that if you like my teaching style and you're learning something from this video, I'm presently creating my single most requested online course in the last few years. Now, I mainly teach Ableton Live, but I've received so many support questions about things having to do with mic placement, interconnectivity, audio interfaces, acoustic treatment, that now I'm building a new course for what I'm just calling recording arts. Now, if learning recording arts for me is something that you think you'd benefit from, you can sign up to be notified when the course is launched. And I always roll new courses out at a nice discount. My DAW is Ableton Live, but this course will encompass anyone using any DAW because it focuses on all the things outside of the DAW, from recording world-class vocals to guitar amps to setting up complex routing and everything in between. So yeah, you can email sign up here or down in the description. Let's get back to the video. So in this example, I have a techno mix that I feel like could benefit from some added low end. I could obviously just use an EQ or something, but the cool thing about the Camden preamps is that they have this mojo mode called thump, and it adds actual harmonics to the low end. I just really like it. So let's go ahead and listen to this mix, and I've done my best to match the input-output loudness, and I'm just going to leave up my peak meter here so you can see that there's no, trickery or anything like that. I'm just A-Bing this thing on and off, and the amount of weight and beautiful low end that this adds is just amazing. So let's go ahead and listen to it without and with. Okay, so in this example, I recorded 2 different takes of an acoustic guitar playing the same riff, and I did it finger style. The thing about recording finger style acoustic guitar is that a lot of the times you're struggling with trying to get something like that shine in a mix because, you know, it's dull. You're not using a pick, so you're not really taking advantage of how bright you can get an acoustic guitar to sound. This is what the track sounds like. And so, you know, I'm kind of taking out the doo-doo-doo kind of low end right here. And, you know, the compressor is kind of struggling with this too. You can hear, like, when I get a little bit loud, this compressor is sort of ducking in a way where it's really noticeable, right? Right? This is just, you know, one of those types of riffs. I mean, there's really nothing wrong with this riff. It's just, you know, it's more of a challenge to record, right? Now, yet again, another advantage of the Camdens is that I've got external audio instrument here, and I'm going to turn this on and run the signal through the preamps. Okay, so there is going to be literally no difference between having these on and off because I haven't engaged any of the mojo modes or the distortions or anything like that. This is just an incredibly clean preamp. I'm just running the signal right back through it. Okay, so when I turn this on, there's going to be no difference. Right? But let's go ahead, and what I want to show you is now the cream mojo mode. And what the cream mojo mode does is it sort of gives you like a little bit more bright top end. Sounds a little tapey. And so you can get these really pleasing tones out of this thing. And let's go ahead and turn these on, and maybe I'll put them at like, yeah, maybe like halfway or something. And let's go ahead and listen to the difference. We can hear some pleasing breakup, especially in the low end. And we can also see that the compressor works a little less hard on those the transients of the signal because, of course, they're getting smeared, right, by this like analog tape-like distortion. So without it, we can see the bigger ducks right there. And so maybe you might be thinking, you know, well, that sounds a bit over-distorted. In fact, let's even crank it up a bit. Let's make it overtly distorted, right? Right? Now, we're making our compressor work less hard, and the saturation is doing sort of the heavy lifting of controlling the dynamics. Now, let's go ahead and listen to this in context, though. So I'm going to take the preamps out of the equation, and let's just listen to this. Now that sounds nice, but you know, the acoustic guitar is fighting for its place in the mix, right? It would benefit from, you know, being a little bit more out and forward. That's where these preamps can help us. That added saturation is going to help place these guitars in the mix. Let's take a listen now. And because of the masking effect, I mean, maybe you can hear that saturation, but that's not really the point. The point is to bring these acoustics out, and now, you know, we can hear them better. I do think in general they could come up in the mix. So let's go ahead and I brought them up 2 dB, and I'll take the preamps out, and then I'll add them a little AB. So yeah, are the Camdens the best preamp ever made? No, that's called YouTube hyperbole. Are they better than vintage Neves? I don't know, and I don't care. I like them, and I see no reason to ever swap them out. One thing is true, they objectively offer more tonal options than most all other preamps, and they only cost $300 versus a decent Neve or an API preamp, which will run you usually about 3 to 4 times more. But at the same time, and it's probably worth noting this, that $300 can buy you lots of gear, nearly all of which will give you more than a preamp with 2 distortion modes. Like, if you don't have a great digital EQ, compressor, and saturator plugin, you could easily get all 3 of those bases covered for about $300 and be much better off. In fact, I'd say that preamps probably give you the least tonal options of nearly all other gear purchases, with the exception for maybe an empty rack, which will also cost you about $300. So I hope that the take from all of this is that preamps play a diminishingly small role in the quality of your recordings. Like I've said many times in this video, the technology has been all but perfected, okay? I really hope that that's the take. I really hope that this video makes you feel good about the gear that you already have, and that you focus on the things that really matter. And that's, you know, everything from miking technique to mixing techniques to pretty much almost everything else, okay, being playing a more important role in the quality of your recordings, okay? You can make world-class recordings with what could now be considered prosumer or even consumer gear, okay? The technology is now in your hands, all right? For an incredibly low price, all right? So yeah, I hope you like this video. If you like this kind of thing, like, comment, subscribe. If you want to support the channel, check out the ABLETON courses that I offer. If you want to find out when the Recording Arts course comes out, you can sign up for that down in the description. As always, thanks for watching. Much love, everybody. I'll see you next time.